Hello everyone, Kenty Tiger here with Bengali Engineering and Play. We are back in Space Engineers. We are continuing on this little mining endeavor thing and having some interesting times in Space Engineers. So this is the Survival Series 2, which we're pretty much just kind of continuing on with. The idea here was to collect some materials. I found a really nice asteroid here. Let me go ahead and bring up the GPS. So it was this one right here. So we have silver, iron, a lot of ice, nickel, and uranium, all kind of for the taking here. So we brought out the 49 drill, vanilla-ish miner. I've actually put two things on here. One was the cargo teleporting system, which means I can mine from here and transmit my cargo back to the base, which is good stuff. And then the other item I actually put on a Kenty refinery. So it basically can do refining, which is what it's doing right now. Although it's plowing through mostly ice here, as you can see. So it is ice and iron. Then we'll go right straight on through, just total tunnel mining here. So looking at our, so we can see the drills here that are bringing in mostly iron. If we click over here to the refinery, it is pulling in a lot of metallics there at once, and then once this side fills up, it shoves it back out. So we really don't have. So the advantage here is that obviously ore takes up a lot of space versus the refined product, which takes up far less space. And ultimately, I think we will end up. So if we look at the containers as they are, so we are pulling in and then storing. So these two are already full, so we're actually using the center container. And as we pull a lot of that in, the drills are doing what they do as we move along here. We have the mining thruster set. So it's keeping us moving forward at a very slow but very steady pace. So the sorter that's right behind the drills is actually pulling all this everything in from the drills themselves, and then we are refining. So trying to see. I guess it's just more ice here. So very slowly putting more and more materials here. We only have three of the 5 containers with anything in it, which is probably a good thing. It means we can store quite a bit more material. See, it's still bringing in iron, but I can't tell where it's actually going. Saw some movement of ice there, but okay. So it's actually bringing in a bit more ice. So whatever iron it can find, it's actually bringing in, and then the rest of it is actually storing it into the next container. So The good news is we have 5 containers. The bad news is we are 4 of 5 containers full. So what that really means is we're going to have to stop. We'll go ahead and turn the drills off for a moment. We'll get back onto toolbar 1. We'll go ahead and do the turn the transmitter on. Cargo teleporter. If we look at what our containers are doing, you can actually see as it's being emptied out. So let's go ahead and go here to the teleporter. So this is moving 269K of iron at a time, or 127K of ice at a time. And this is going pretty much straight over to the station right now. So it's not just, you know, vanishing into thin air. It's actually going somewhere. So I have no idea if this would actually keep up with the drills or not. So let's go ahead and find out. So this is the refinery is on here, as well as the transmitter, the cargo transmitter. So on, I have to punch up just a little bit of speed there. So if it gets too much faster than 1/3 of a meter per second, it tends to hit the drills, which is really to say it hits and then slows down, because with a even though it's showing as dampers on here, when you have a thruster in thrust override, dampers don't do anything until that is turned off, because you have effectively a thrust force being applied, as if you're pushing the button is really what it is. So until that turns off, then your dampers actually are not doing anything. So it's just coasting forward here, but coasting with that slight push behind it. And so this 500 newtons here seems to be about right for moving this thing forward, and even though a newton is a very rigidly defined amount of force, I don't know that, you know, Space Engineers is really applying it reasonably in this case. 500 newtons I don't think would move a ship this size. If we look on the other side here, this thing is 1,487,000 kilograms. So it pretty big ship, all things considered, and it's, you know, managing to push this thing forward on a single thruster at 500 newtons. So it is, you know, speeding up very slowly, but so we're now over just a hair over 1/3 of a meter. So I was messing with the camera and finally got frustrated with it. It just really, you know, camera totally not working here. That's not annoying at all. We'll just not even attempt to do anything more with the camera because the camera clearly does not work. Still doesn't work after, what, 3 years of development. So just creeping forward very slowly. We're now up to 0.38 meters per second. Strangely, the oxygen generator has ice in it. Control panel. Generator, it's on. Oxygen tank is entirely filled. So oxygen none. I have no idea why it would say oxygen none. So, zoom out here with, so we're actually pretty close to the edge here. But, just coming through the outer surface there now. we're still having a lot of hiccup problems, and you know, unfortunately, this is just nature of the proverbial game here. Alright. Turn the ship around here. What I'd really like to do is kind of head back through and end up really over here close to the uranium. Reasonably close here again, and work with lots of silver there. This is I mean, I guess it wouldn't hurt to have a lot of silver. There's the uranium. You know, fairly close to yes, actually I could really just kind of clear this whole area, couldn't I? What I want to do is kind of take this all the way to the core. This. So it just basically goes right up into the asteroid, and then I'll back off and shift and back off and shift. So we'll just basically, you know, take this whole section off. So we are taking in a lot of stone, but the station actually has a mineral extractor, so I could actually take an awful lot of the gravel and just put it back through and basically pull the gravel back through and then turn it into other minerals. Now granted, we need a certain amount of gravel to do everything. So I'm just about once I'm really up against, which I think I am already, so I'm basically coming into the rest of the asteroid here. Then we'll back straight out. And then I think we will go down. Tilt just a hair so we can see what we're doing here. Where's that first piece of stone there going? So at this point I've got the refinery on, as well as I think I'm going to go down just a tiny bit more. What I really want is for the drills to be able to just take as much of this surface off as they can. See how it's doing? Yeah, so it's actually right on the edge there. There's the mining thruster on just a tiny little bit. Taking in mostly stone here, but a little bit of silver. Definitely a lot of silver right here. This should be right here more silver than we will ever need for anything. Silver is used for 6 or 7 different things, but if we found a deposit like this of gold, then it would be probably more gold than we would need. So you'd use about the same gold as platinum, which is really not very much. So this one's kind of going to be the same once I start seeing, like right now, we're starting to see the rest of this rock face coming off. And we'll go ahead and cancel that thruster and start backing away. So I'm just curious to see how our containers are keeping up. So they're actually keeping up really well, and in fact it's probably staying ahead of, let's go ahead and look at our refinery. So this is actually pulling quite a bit of you know, unrefined stuff in, but that's okay. We do have the refineries on the station, which can do, you know, much the same. That's the same kind of work. So ultimately, what I want to do is take this entire vein of silver, and it's of course pretty large here, but so I'm going to go to this kind of demarc, which is where this apparently silver asteroid here slammed into the side. So the next part of our mining endeavor really will probably be to either build the much larger miner, which I think I have projectors that can actually do that. We haven't put a projector onto the station, but there's no reason we can't do that. So that may be another project, or I have my personal favorite miner, which is a totally modded miner, but it uses Kenti drills, which are probably the one drill is probably going to clear out more than what this 49 drill miner does. It can make pretty quick work of the smaller asteroids. Right, it doesn't passes through or less, and it's pretty much finished them off. For a big asteroid like this, it would take a little bit more energy, but. So what I'm doing here pardon me. So what I'm doing here is really just going all the way through into the stone, and once I can see that the silver is done. I don't know how far the silver goes in. Apparently, pretty far. Finally, I'm seeing stone. This is a whole lot of silver. Finally seeing stone on the very bottom corner there. But I guess the real question is, how much silver do we actually need? I think we're already far exceeding what we need. Alright, so let's go ahead and back out here. So this is probably one of the most, I want to say, boring aspects of Space Engineers, and I haven't actually done a lot of this while videoing, just because it really is boring. I do a lot of this either off screen, or I pull it in from, you know, full containers, but so definitely one of the boring aspects of the game is mining. But it's nice when you have a reasonably automatic miner, or at least a miner that is configured to do a lot of what you're doing semi-automatically, because then a lot of this you don't really have to worry about anymore. So having the having that aft override thruster is actually a really neat thing. I think that's probably about good. I'm a little bit overlapping, but I think that'll be reasonably effective. Alright, so light up the... So what seems to be working fairly well for both the stone and the silver, some of the substrates, some of the ore and stuff have apparently different densities that have been calculated in, and so I was having trouble earlier going through iron and then shifting back to stone. It would slow down to 18 or 19, you know, 0.18, 0.19 meters per second, and we've been fairly consistent here at, you know, third of a meter per second, which is kind of nice. a little less boring to watch it from the side here, so you can see really exactly what the drills are doing. Kind of fun. Not a whole lot less boring, but at least it's not entirely like watching paint dry. Suppose just to get rid of these little craggly parts. That's probably about right. Just slight angle there. There we go. two dimensions at once here, but did a tutorial on a much larger miner. I think it was a 176 drill or something like that, and eventually it ended up kind of expanded into a much larger miner. It was kind of a the miner was designed and built back when the drills actually had about a half a width, in addition to so the drills used to have a broad enough width when they were drilling, so these are about a quarter of a block, not quite a half a block, maybe a third of a block, and you used to be able to actually put another block on top, and so you could actually put cameras and everything. So the miner was actually I thought a really nice miner. It had 4 cameras, one on the centers on each side. The cockpit was actually up top, so you could see. I thought it worked out really well, and then I actually tried to use it probably on 181, 182, somewhere in there, and because the drills were so narrow in the cutting patterns that I couldn't actually use it anymore. I could get it in the depth of the drills, and that was it. And then it would butt up against all the cameras and the cockpit. So it ended up being somewhat useless, which I didn't like. I hate building things and then coming back and discovering later on that they no longer work. It's kind of frustrating. So of course the advantage to bigger drill vessels is you can take in a lot more material. And one of the things we may experiment with just for the fun of it is like the big laser mining rigs. I've experimented with those quite a while back, and they're extremely power hungry, which is one of the biggest problems with it, but in some ways that kind of makes it a bit balanced, because they are so power hungry, because they are so expensive to build and resources, then it really does kind of pay off in the end when you can actually do some pretty serious mining with it. This is going to be quite wide enough to take that whole swath. It might be, especially if I get this right on the edge. top is good, the bottom may be. We have to get it a little closer here. Really, really close. So that's just a fraction. Fraction over and a fraction under, and it's still actually cutting pretty good. So I really had intended to go after the uranium, and then ended up boring into to this area here. Actually, so the silver on the outside, then a rock portion, and then more silver. There's actually a bunch of silver down here. So I think as exciting as all this really is, this is probably right about an hour of, we've been doing the pretty heavy mining here. Accomplished quite a bit, but again, not the most exciting stuff ever. So this might be a good place to cut this video off. So this is Kenty Tiger signing off. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you next time.